Every culture throughout history has them. The court jester spinning tales for kings, the village idiot everyone secretly loves, the class clown disrupting lessons. These figures seem trivial at first glance, comic relief in the grand drama of civilization, yet they persist across every society, every era. What if I told you that fools are actually the most important people in any civilization? That their apparent stupidity contains the most profound wisdom? Today, we're drowning in a sea of relentless seriousness. LinkedIn posts about productivity hacks and growth mindsets, Instagram stories about optimization and life coaching. Everyone's positioning themselves as an expert, a guru, a thought leader. We've created a world where admitting ignorance feels like professional suicide, but we've forgotten something crucial in our rush toward expertise. The transformative power of not knowing, the unexpected strength found in apparent weakness, the radical wisdom that has been hidden in plain sight for millennia, the fool's wisdom that our ancestors understood, but we've somehow lost. This isn't just about entertainment or comic relief, it is about the fundamental architecture of human consciousness and social health. In medieval times, only one person in the entire kingdom could mock the king without losing their head. The fool enjoyed this extraordinary privilege. While nobles whispered behind closed doors and courtiers spoke in coded language, the jester spoke truth directly to absolute power. Their cap and bells were magical armor. This wasn't just entertainment for bored aristocrats, it was a psychological necessity that prevented kingdoms from collapsing under the weight of suppressed truth. The fool served as society's essential pressure valve. Without them, kingdoms would explode from accumulated tensions and unspoken grievances festering in the shadows. Think about the incredible trust this represents. A king who could execute anyone on a whim chose to keep someone around whose job was mocking him. This arrangement worked because both parties understood the deeper contract. The fool wasn't truly attacking the king, they were serving the kingdom's psychological health. They could say what everyone else was thinking but was too terrified to voice. They provided cathartic release for social tensions that might otherwise erupt violently. The fool's jokes weren't just humor, they were a form of social medicine, laughter, as a healing force for collective wounds and contradictions. This ancient wisdom about the fool's role has been largely forgotten in our modern world. We've lost the art of sacred irreverence. Socrates understood this principle perfectly. He claimed to know nothing, and this admission made him the wisest man in Athens, according to the oracle. His revolutionary method: ask devastatingly simple questions that expose the ignorance of supposedly learned men. Play the fool to reveal hidden truths about reality. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. This wasn't false humility. It was revolutionary thinking that fundamentally changed philosophy forever. Socrates would approach experts in various fields and ask basic questions about their areas of expertise. What is justice? What is courage? What is beauty? The experts would confidently begin explaining, only to find themselves tied in logical knots by the ignorant philosopher's persistent questioning. Through this method, Socrates demonstrated that most people, especially those claiming expertise, didn't actually understand what they thought they knew. He showed that genuine wisdom begins with intellectual humility, the recognition that our knowledge is limited, and our certainties are often illusions. Modern experts could learn profoundly from this approach. The moment we claim complete expertise, we stop learning. We become closed to new information. Foolishness keeps us curious. It maintains the beginner's mind that allows for genuine discovery and innovation. It prevents intellectual arrogance from calcifying our thinking. The Socratic fool isn't someone who knows nothing. They're someone who is honest about the limits of their knowledge and curious about what lies beyond. Native American cultures revered the trickster figure with a respect that bordered on worship. Coyote, raven, rabbit, these beings brought chaos that ultimately created order. They broke rules not from malice or stupidity, but to show why rules exist in the first place. Their disruption revealed hidden patterns in reality. In psychological terms, tricksters represent the shadow self, the parts of us we suppress but desperately need to acknowledge for psychological wholeness. The trickster teaches through violation. They cross boundaries, break taboos, and challenge assumptions that have become so natural we forget they're constructed. Without tricksters, societies become rigid and brittle. Rules become absolute rather than adaptive. Innovation dies under the crushing weight of how things are done. The trickster's chaos serves evolution. They introduce random elements that force adaptation. They prevent cultures from stagnating in their own success. They're the wild card that keeps systems flexible. The unpredictable element that prevents societies from becoming too ordered, too predictable, too sterile. In modern terms, tricksters are the entrepreneurs who break industry rules, the artists who violate aesthetic conventions, the scientists who question fundamental assumptions. They're the necessary disruptors who prevent human systems from becoming closed loops that eventually collapse under their own rigidity. The trickster fool understands that sometimes destruction is necessary for creation. that breaking things can reveal how to build them better. Every great comedian knows the secret that audiences sense, but rarely articulate. The funniest material comes from the deepest pain. Laughter and tears are intimate neighbors. Robin Williams, Charlie Chaplin, Richard Pryor, all transformed personal suffering into universal joy. Their vulnerability became their greatest strength and gift to humanity. This isn't coincidence or cruel irony. Comedy requires a specific kind of courage. You must risk ridicule to make others laugh. That is the fool's eternal bargain. The comedian stands naked before an audience, offering their pain as entertainment. They transform personal wound into communal healing through the alchemy of laughter. We laugh at fools, but we also desperately need them. They show us it is okay to be imperfect, struggling, beautifully and messily human. The fool's willingness to be laughed at gives everyone else permission to be imperfect. They take the shame out of failure, struggle, and confusion. In a world that demands constant performance of success and happiness, the fool's honest display of struggle provides essential relief. They remind us that suffering is universal, that we're all struggling with something, that perfection is an impossible and ultimately destructive goal. The comedy-tragedy connection runs deeper than entertainment. It is about the fundamental human need to transform pain into meaning, suffering into wisdom. The fool who can laugh at their own pain demonstrates the highest form of emotional intelligence and resilience. Social media has created a world where everyone's a performer, carefully curating perfect lives while hiding their foolish moments behind filters and editing. We present polished versions of ourselves, sharing only successes and hiding struggles. The result is a world where everyone seems to have it figured out. But this creates a devastating psychological problem. Without visible foolishness, we lose permission to be imperfect. Everyone else seems effortlessly successful while we struggle privately. The result? Epidemic levels of anxiety, depression, and imposter syndrome. We're all performing competence while feeling lost and confused inside. We need digital fools, people brave enough to show their mistakes, their confusion, their beautiful human messiness in public spaces. The most powerful social media content often comes from people willing to be vulnerable, to admit struggles, to show the unglamorous reality behind success. These digital fools perform the same function as ancient jesters. They give everyone else permission to be human rather than perfect. They remind us that growth involves failure, that learning requires making mistakes, that authenticity is more valuable than perfection. The absence of visible foolishness in digital spaces creates impossible standards that make everyone feel inadequate compared to others' highlight reels. We need to celebrate and protect our digital fools. They're performing essential social and psychological functions in our increasingly connected world. Every breakthrough in human history began with someone acting foolish by conventional standards. The Wright brothers were mocked for trying to fly like birds. Einstein was considered a poor student who asked too many questions. Darwin was dismissed as a daydreamer who collected beetles instead of focusing on serious studies. Van Gogh sold one painting in his lifetime. Tesla was considered a mad scientist. Every revolutionary idea initially appears foolish to established thinking. Innovation requires a specific kind of foolishness. You must be willing to look stupid, to try impossible things, to fail spectacularly and publicly. Conservative thinking never creates breakthroughs. It refines existing systems but doesn't fundamentally transform them. Only fools dare to imagine what doesn't yet exist. The innovation paradox is that the most valuable ideas often appear most foolish initially. They violate current assumptions about what is possible or practical. Established experts are often the worst at predicting breakthrough innovations, because their expertise creates blind spots. They know too much about why things can't work. The fool's ignorance becomes an advantage. They don't know enough to be limited by conventional wisdom. They ask naive questions that reveal hidden possibilities. This is why many breakthrough companies are founded by outsiders to their industries. They bring fresh perspectives unconstrained by industry assumptions. The fool's willingness to be wrong opens possibilities that expertise closes off. They're willing to explore paths that experts know are impossible. Zen Buddhism teaches Shoshin beginner's mind. In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind there are few. Children embody this perfectly. They ask, why incessantly, driving adults crazy with their relentless curiosity. But their questions often reveal profound insights adults miss. Why do we work jobs we hate? Why can't we just be nice to everyone? Why do people fight over invisible lines on maps? Simple questions from children often have devastating implications for adult assumptions. They cut through complexity to reveal fundamental contradictions. Adults have learned to stop asking these questions. We accept complexity as wisdom. We mistake sophistication for understanding. But sometimes the child's simple truth cuts deeper than the adult's complex analysis. The fool's naive question reveals what the expert's knowledge obscures. Beginner's mind isn't about being ignorant. It is about approaching each situation with fresh eyes, without preconceptions about what is possible or impossible. The expert sees what they expect to see, the beginner sees what is actually there. This difference is crucial for innovation and growth. Maintaining beginner's mind requires constant vigilance against the tyranny of expertise. The moment we think we understand something completely, we stop learning. The fool's greatest gift is their ability to maintain wonder and curiosity in the face of complexity. They refuse to let knowledge kill their sense of mystery. Tarot places the fool at 0, not the beginning or end of the numerical sequence, but the eternal potential for new beginnings. The fool steps off cliffs, trusting in unseen forces. This isn't stupidity, it is faith in the journey itself, rather than attachment to specific outcomes. Life is fundamentally uncertain. Planning helps, but over-planning can paralyze. Sometimes you must leap and trust that your wings will grow during the fall. The fool's journey represents every human's path through life. We're all stepping into unknown territory, making decisions without complete information. The fool teaches us that not all journeys need clear destinations. Sometimes the courage to start is the only wisdom needed to begin transformation. Each step reveals the next step. The path appears as we walk it. This requires a different kind of intelligence than strategic planning. The fool's journey is about trusting the process rather than controlling outcomes. It is about being present to what emerges rather than forcing predetermined results. This isn't passive acceptance, it is active engagement with uncertainty. The fool takes action, despite not knowing where it leads. In psychological terms, the fool's journey represents the process of individuation, becoming who we're meant to be through experience rather than theory. The fool's willingness to look foolish opens possibilities that the need to appear wise closes off. They're free to experiment and discover. There is a dark side to the fool's role that we must acknowledge. The court jester who went too far faced execution. Modern fools face cancellation. Speaking truth to power has always been dangerous. The fool's wisdom comes with a target on their back. They sacrifice safety for authenticity. Many retreat into safer roles when they see what happens to those who speak uncomfortable truths. Better to be ignored than destroyed. But this silences the voices society needs most. The ones willing to name the emperor's nakedness, to question sacred assumptions, to disrupt comfortable lies. We must protect our fools. Create spaces where truth-telling is rewarded rather than punished. Democracy depends on these voices surviving. The fool's courage to speak truth comes at personal cost. They often face rejection, ridicule, and professional consequences for their honesty, but their willingness to pay this price serves everyone. They prevent societies from becoming trapped in collective delusions that eventually collapse. The fool's sacrifice creates space for others to think and speak more freely. They absorb the punishment that would otherwise silence important voices. This is why protecting fools isn't just about individual rights, it is about collective survival. Societies need feedback mechanisms to prevent self-destruction. The fool serves as an early warning system for cultural blind spots and dangerous assumptions. Silencing them is like disabling smoke detectors. Carl Jung wrote extensively about integrating the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny or suppress. The fool represents this integration process. We all have an inner fool, the part that wants to dance badly, sing loudly, say inappropriate things, and act without complete information. When we suppress this aspect of ourselves, it doesn't disappear. It goes underground, becoming resentment, bitterness, or exploding in unhealthy ways. The shadow fool contains our rejected spontaneity, our disowned playfulness, our abandoned dreams that seem too foolish to pursue. Embracing our inner fool isn't about being irresponsible or reckless. It is about maintaining contact with our full humanity, including the parts that seem unacceptable. The integrated fool can be serious when necessary, but refuses to take themselves so seriously that they lose touch with wonder and play. They understand that all roles are temporary, all identities are partial, all achievements are ultimately fleeting. This perspective brings both humility and freedom. The fool's integration involves accepting paradox, being both wise and innocent, grounded and transcendent, serious and playful simultaneously. This isn't contradiction. It is wholeness. The capacity to access different aspects of ourselves as situations require, without being imprisoned by any single identity. The shadow fool reminds us that we're more than our professional roles, social positions, or carefully crafted personas. We're endlessly creative beings. In mythology worldwide, the fool often becomes the hero. The youngest brother, everyone mocks, saves the kingdom. The village idiot solves impossible problems. This isn't fantasy. It is psychological truth. Our greatest weaknesses often contain our greatest strengths when properly understood and channeled. The fool's journey is fundamentally about transformation, not from foolish to wise, but from unconscious to conscious foolishness. Unconscious foolishness acts without awareness. Conscious foolishness chooses when to be serious and when to embrace the absurd. The fool's redemption comes through accepting their role rather than fighting it. They find power in powerlessness, wisdom in ignorance, strength in vulnerability. This transformation isn't about becoming someone else. It is about becoming more fully themselves. The fool who owns their foolishness becomes unstoppable. They're no longer imprisoned by others' opinions because they've already accepted the worst thing people can say about them, that they're a fool. This acceptance becomes a form of invulnerability. When you are not defending an image of competence, you are free to take risks and experiment. The redeemed fool understands that all human achievement is ultimately absurd from a cosmic perspective. This understanding brings both humility and liberation. They can work passionately for causes, while maintaining perspective about the ultimate meaninglessness of all human endeavors. This paradox is the source of their power. Today's fools face unprecedented challenges. Algorithms don't understand irony or context. Cancel culture doesn't forgive mistakes. Everything is recorded forever. The digital age has created a world where one foolish moment can destroy a lifetime of reputation. This creates powerful incentives for conformity and self-censorship, but we need fools more than ever. In a world of fake news and echo chambers, someone must question everything, especially the things everyone knows are true. The fool's job isn't to provide answers, it is to ask better questions, to poke holes in certainty, to maintain doubt in the face of dogma. In an age of artificial intelligence and algorithmic decision-making, our most distinctly human quality might be our capacity for beautiful, necessary foolishness. Machines can optimize, calculate, and predict, but they can't wonder, doubt, or embrace paradox. They can't laugh at their own limitations. The modern fool must navigate between different kinds of intelligence: analytical and intuitive, logical and emotional, systematic and creative. They must be sophisticated enough to understand complex systems while maintaining the innocence to question their fundamental assumptions. The digital fool faces the challenge of being authentic in curated spaces, spontaneous in recorded environments, and honest in contexts that reward performance. Their function remains the same as ancient jesters: to keep human systems flexible, honest, and connected to deeper truths than efficiency and optimization. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability demonstrates what ancient fools instinctively knew. Strength comes from admitting weakness rather than hiding it. Leaders who show their struggles connect more deeply with others than those who project perfection. Authenticity creates trust more effectively than authority. This represents a fundamental shift in how we think about power and leadership. The old model demanded invulnerability. The new model rewards humanity. The fool's gift to leadership is permission to be human, to make mistakes publicly, to learn in front of others, to admit confusion and uncertainty. This isn't weakness. It is a different kind of strength. The strength to be real rather than right, to be connected rather than correct. Vulnerable leaders create psychological safety for others to take risks, make mistakes, and innovate. They model the behavior they want to see. The fool's vulnerability is contagious in the best way. It spreads permission to be imperfect, to struggle, to be human in professional contexts. This transformation is essential for creative and innovative organizations. Perfectionism kills creativity. Fear of failure prevents experimentation. The vulnerable fool creates spaces where people can think out loud, explore half-formed ideas, and fail forward without shame. They understand that creativity requires a willingness to look foolish, to try things that might not work, to play with possibilities. Psychological research consistently shows that creative people are more comfortable with ambiguity, paradox, and apparent contradictions than the general population. They're willing to entertain foolish ideas that others dismiss immediately. They play with possibilities that seem impossible or impractical. This isn't despite their intelligence. It is because of a different kind of intelligence. They understand that breakthrough insights often seem absurd initially. The fool's mind is naturally creative because it doesn't censor ideas based on immediate practicality. It explores first and judges later. Creative fools understand that most ideas are bad, but you can't know which ones until you explore them. They're willing to have bad ideas to find good ones. They maintain what researchers call cognitive flexibility, the ability to switch between different mental frameworks depending on the situation. This flexibility allows them to see connections that others miss, to combine disparate elements in novel ways, to approach problems from unexpected angles. The fool's creativity comes from their willingness to be wrong, to change their mind, to abandon ideas that aren't working without ego attachment. They understand that creativity is a process of exploration rather than execution. You can't create something new without venturing into unknown territory. The creative fool serves as a bridge between the possible and the actual, between imagination and reality, between what is and what could be. Many fools throughout history have come from the margins of society, those with physical differences, social outcasts, people who don't fit conventional molds. This outsider perspective gives them unique insights into human nature and social dynamics. They see what insiders miss because they're not embedded in the system. Their suffering often develops profound empathy. Their exclusion creates deep understanding of others who feel different or displaced. The fool's differentness becomes their wisdom. They understand what it feels like to be rejected, misunderstood, or dismissed by mainstream society. This experience translates into compassion for others who are struggling, marginalized, or different. They become advocates for the excluded. Society desperately needs these perspectives. Without them, we develop dangerous blind spots that eventually become fatal flaws for entire civilizations. The fool's empathy isn't theoretical. It is earned through lived experience. They've been laughed at, rejected, and dismissed. They know how it feels. This emotional intelligence allows them to connect with others across differences. They see the humanity in people that others might judge or dismiss. The empathetic fool serves as a bridge between different worlds, different experiences, different ways of being human. They remind us that beneath surface differences, we all share the same fundamental needs for connection, meaning, and acceptance. Scientific research has extensively documented what traditional cultures always knew: laughter is medicine. It boosts immune function, reduces stress, and releases endorphins. The fool's gift of humor literally heals bodies and minds. Not just individuals, but entire communities torn apart by conflict and division. Shared laughter creates bonds that transcend differences. It reminds us of our common humanity beneath surface disagreements and cultural divisions. In times of crisis, trauma, and collective stress, we desperately need fools to help us find reasons to smile amid the darkness. The fool's healing power comes from their ability to transform pain into laughter, to find humor in horrible situations, to maintain hope when everything seems hopeless. They don't minimize suffering, they transform it. They show us that even in the darkest moments, there is still something to laugh about. This isn't denial or escapism. It is a profound form of resilience that allows people to survive and even thrive in difficult circumstances. The fool's laughter is often gallows humor, dark, irreverent, and inappropriate by conventional standards, but it serves a vital psychological function. It helps people process trauma, maintain sanity in insane situations, and find connection with others who share similar struggles. The healing fool understands that sometimes you have to laugh to keep from crying, that humor can be a form of resistance against despair. Throughout history, fools have served as society's truth-tellers. From Shakespearean jesters to modern comedians, they expose societal hypocrisies and contradictions. They have unique permission to say what others cannot. Their humor makes bitter truths palatable. Their apparent harmlessness allows dangerous ideas to circulate. This function becomes more important during times of political tension and social upheaval. When serious discourse becomes impossible, fools can still speak truth. Their jokes aren't just entertainment. They're social commentary disguised as humor. They reveal the absurdities and contradictions in human behavior. The fool's truth-telling serves a democratic function. They prevent societies from becoming trapped in collective delusions by constantly questioning assumptions. Their apparent lack of agenda makes their observations more credible. They're not trying to gain power or advance a cause, they're just calling it like they see it. This tradition is more important than ever in our polarized world. Sometimes only fools can speak across ideological divides because they mock everyone equally. Their commitment to truth over tribal loyalty makes them valuable mediators in cultural conflicts. They refuse to take sides in ways that allow dialogue. The truth-telling fool serves as society's conscience, constantly reminding us of the gap between our ideals and our reality. They force us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our institutions that we'd rather ignore or deny. Fools are natural agents of change. They disrupt comfortable patterns, question fundamental assumptions, and force growth through creative destruction. Organizations desperately need fools, people who aren't afraid to suggest radical alternatives or point out that the emperor has no clothes. Change is always uncomfortable and often threatens established power structures. Fools help us laugh through the discomfort instead of resisting it. They remind us that transformation often looks foolish from the outside, but is necessary for evolution and survival. The fool's role in transformation is to make the impossible seem possible, to expand our sense of what is achievable or worth attempting. They serve as early adopters of new ideas, willing to risk failure and ridicule to explore untested possibilities. Their experimentation creates data about what works and what doesn't, paving the way for more cautious people to follow. The transformational fool understands that all systems eventually become obsolete. Their job is to help organizations and societies adapt before they become irrelevant. They're comfortable with destruction because they understand it is often necessary for creation. They help others see endings as beginnings. The fool's transformation catalyst function is about maintaining flexibility in rigid systems, introducing variation in stagnant environments, and keeping options open when others want to close them. The fool's greatest teaching is about a specific kind of courage, not the courage to be heroic, but the courage to be ridiculous, to risk looking stupid in public, to try things you might fail at spectacularly, to speak truths others find uncomfortable or inconvenient. This courage is perhaps the most important skill for our time. We're all performing competence while feeling lost and confused inside. The fool gives us permission to be openly confused, to ask for help, to admit we don't have everything figured out. This isn't just personal liberation, it is social transformation. When people can be authentic about their struggles, we can address problems more effectively. The courage to be ridiculous is the courage to be human in a world that demands superhuman performance. It is the courage to prioritize truth over image, growth over reputation, connection over status. The fool's ridiculous courage creates space for others to be equally courageous in their own ways. They demonstrate that survival and even success are possible without constant performance of competence. The ridiculously courageous fool becomes a beacon for others who are tired of pretending to be someone they're not. In many spiritual traditions, the fool is considered sacred, touched by the divine, blessed with special insight that transcends ordinary understanding. This isn't superstition. It is recognition of the fool's unique role in human consciousness and social health. They serve as bridges between worlds, conscious and unconscious, serious and playful, known and unknown, sacred and profane. The sacred fool embodies paradox in ways that reveal deeper truths about the nature of existence itself. They're simultaneously wise and innocent, powerful and powerless, meaningful and absurd. This paradoxical nature makes them powerful teachers and healers. They can hold contradictions that would tear apart more rigid personalities. The sacred fool understands that all human knowledge is ultimately limited. All certainties are provisional. All achievements are temporary. This perspective brings both humility and freedom. They're not attached to being right or maintaining consistent positions. Their sacred function is to remind us of mystery, wonder, and the humility that keeps us connected to something larger than ourselves. Without sacred fools, we lose touch with the transcendent aspects of human experience. We become trapped in purely rational, materialistic worldviews. The sacred fool serves as a reminder that there are more ways of knowing than thinking, more kinds of intelligence than analytical reasoning. The ultimate goal isn't to become fools, but to integrate the fool archetype within ourselves, to balance wisdom with wonder, knowledge with curiosity. This means maintaining beginner's mind while developing genuine expertise, staying curious while becoming competent. It means learning to laugh at ourselves while taking our work seriously, being vulnerable while remaining strong. The integrated fool is both wise and innocent, grounded and transcendent, serious and playful, not as contradictions but as complementary aspects of wholeness. This integration requires ongoing practice. It is easy to fall into extremes, either taking ourselves too seriously or not seriously enough. The integrated fool knows when to be serious and when to lighten up. They can read situations and respond appropriately. They understand that different contexts call for different aspects of their personality. They're not rigidly consistent but appropriately flexible. The integration challenge is about becoming more fully human rather than more perfectly anything. It is about embracing our complexity. The integrated fool serves as a model for how to live authentically in a world that often demands performance and pretense. They show us that it is possible to be successful without sacrificing our humanity, to be professional without being robotic. In a world obsessed with optimization, efficiency, and performance, we desperately need a revolution of foolishness. We need people brave enough to ask stupid questions, try impossible things, and fail spectacularly in public. We need leaders who can laugh at themselves, artists who risk ridicule, and thinkers who embrace paradox and uncertainty. We need organizations that celebrate mistakes as learning opportunities, that reward experimentation over perfection. Most importantly, we need to embrace our own inner fool, the part that knows not all valuable things can be measured or optimized. The call to foolishness isn't a call to irresponsibility. It is a call to a different kind of responsibility, to truth, to growth, to humanity. It is a call to resist the dehumanizing forces that want to turn us into efficient machines rather than creative, curious beings. The fool's revolution is already happening, in vulnerability research, in design thinking, in agile methodologies, in mindfulness practices. These movements all recognize what the fool has always known, that uncertainty is not the enemy of progress, but its essential ingredient. The call to foolishness is a call to reclaim our humanity in an increasingly automated world. The fool's journey never truly ends. Each ending becomes a new beginning. Each mastery returns to beginner's mind. This is the fool's final and most important teaching. Life is cyclical, not linear. We're all eternal beginners in the school of existence. The wisest among us are those who remember this truth, who maintain wonder, curiosity, and the courage to look foolish. Every expert was once a beginner. Every master was once a disaster. Every wise person was once a fool. The fool's eternal return reminds us that growth is ongoing, that learning never stops, that we're always becoming rather than being. This perspective prevents the spiritual pride that comes from thinking we've arrived somewhere final or permanent. The fool steps off the cliff, not because they're stupid, but because they trust in the journey itself, rather than any particular destination. They understand that the path appears as we walk it, that meaning emerges through experience rather than planning. In the end, we're all fools on the same journey. The only difference is whether we're conscious of it or not. The fool teaches us that in a world obsessed with having all the answers, the greatest wisdom might be in admitting we don't know, and being delighted by the mystery. And sometimes, in a world that takes itself far too seriously, that is the wisest thing of all. The fool's gift to humanity is the reminder that we are all beginners, all students, all works in progress. In embracing this truth, we find not humiliation, but liberation, the freedom to grow, to change, to become more than we ever imagined possible.